Today, we're going to talk about reviewing your data from 2020 and then how that can inform your plan for 2021. I know that for a lot of people, it may still seem even a little early to be planning for 2021, but this is actually the perfect time to plan because you can really spend the next, 7 to 8 weeks kind of working through your plan and seeing, okay, is this really, going to work out? How is the world changing? You just have a place to start. So even if things change, and even if you have to pivot, even if we have a whole other pandemic, which, knock on wood, we don't, you'll have somewhere to begin. So I really want to talk about how we're going to look back at what you've done for 2020 and how that'll inform you for 2021. So let's jump in. All right, so today I want to talk about Google Analytics and social media analytics, and then how to create or run a 2021 planning weekend. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be a weekend. It doesn't even have to be multiple days, but this is an exercise I do that's really helpful. And so I kind of want to walk you through it a little bit to see if it would be a help to you. And the reason I want to talk about Google Analytics and social media today is, one, we only have so much time, but also these are typically going to be the most comprehensive analytic data that you'll have, and you can take this and really apply it across the board. So whether you're doing email marketing as well, or some other form of marketing, you can kind of take these same principles and apply it across the board. So feel free to kind of take this and think and expand upon it, but I want to touch on these things with the limited time that we have. So first, let's talk about Google Analytics. So the basics. Now, there is so much information in Google Analytics. It's crazy, and I could literally spend and have spent hours just exploring the data, looking at all of it, seeing what it means. And if you're not familiar with it, it can feel really daunting at first, but I promise you it's not as scary once you figure out exactly where things are and what they mean. But the 4 things that I really encourage all of my clients and anyone that runs a small business to focus on if they're not familiar or have never dived into the analytics before is these 4 things: your sessions, your behavior overview, your behavior map, and your bounce rate. So those 4 things are going to give you a lot of good information to get started. And then from there, you can dive deeper into each of those. So first, let's talk about sessions. So sessions are just how Google labels a group of interactions from one user. It's normally within a specific time frame, and Google's kind of defaults to 30 minutes. So it looks at what one user does within a 30-minute period of time. And in short, they're really just visits or active users. So this is a snapshot of my Google Analytics this morning. And so you can see here, there's a lot of information, but it's looking at the sessions, and there's these spikes and then these drops and all of this kind of fun stuff. There's, a pie chart of how many new people are coming in and how many people are returning visitors. There's a lot of information, but this shows me that there's nearly 300 sessions over the course of this past month. So from October 6th to November 4th, I've had about 300 sessions, or, probably people about come onto the site. And so it's just a really helpful tool to say, okay, we've got that many sessions, 188 of them are brand new users. Most of the time, it's 3.6, so about 3 pages that they're checking out per session, and the bounce rate is pretty low. So we'll touch on that a little bit later, but all of this information just tells me kind of what people are doing and how many people are visiting the site. So if these numbers were at like 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending upon what industry I'm in, that could be really bad or it could be really good. So for me, 300 people coming in and checking out my site is pretty awesome. And this, I've set it up so that it excludes any of my content. So I'll often go onto my website to, review a blog post or just to kind of see what people are seeing. And so I've set up a exclusion field basically, so it doesn't include that. So that's kind of helpful for me to know, okay, almost 300 people that aren't me are coming onto the site and doing something, right? So some of them might be clicking in and leaving. Some of them might be the same person coming back every week to look at something. There's a lot of different things that this information can tell me. It tells me even the average amount of time that someone spends on my site. So it looks to be about 2 minutes almost. And that's pretty good for, especially if they're, reading one of my blogs or watching a video. They can watch the recordings of these videos on my website, but they can be pretty small. And so a lot of times people will go to the YouTube version of it where it pulls from. And so knowing that maybe they're spending 2 minutes there, all that kind of information, and I can find out those details on Google Analytics. But this big overview is going to tell me exactly how many people are visiting my website in a given period of time. And so that's really, really helpful and lets me know, okay, if this many people are visiting my site, how healthy is my website, right? So this is going to tell me, okay, if there's a lot of people visiting, do I need to check out and see if I need to update my website? My answer is yes. That's one of my goals for the upcoming years, to get my website just refreshed and updated. But this is kind of an encouragement there to say, okay, within the last month, 300 users or 300 people, 300 sessions have been here. And so I want to make sure that they're getting the best possible experience when they go to my website. So that's sessions, and that's really helpful. And this is a great place to start. The next one I want to talk about is behaviors. And this is where I can spend hours just looking into this data. So behaviors versus the behavior map is a little different, but they basically share the same kind of information. So your behavior section is going to tell you what your visitors do on your website. And that makes sense, right? But it'll specifically report and tell you what pages people visit and then what actions they take while they're visiting. So just to start, I look at the behaviors in general and I see what pages people spend the most amount of time on. So I see that we've got a lot of page views, over 1,000 page views, and 500 of them are unique. People typically spend a little under a minute on each page. And then the exit and bounce rates are in, the mid to high 20%, which is pretty good. But when I go to that bottom list there, I can see what pages they visit. And so that first one is my home page, which makes a lot of sense to me because that is where a lot of my content on email or on social media, all of that kind of always points to my homepage, typically my homepage or a blog post, right? And so this shows that a lot of people are landing on that page first and starting there and spending some time on that homepage. And there's a lot of information on my homepage, so that makes sense. The next one is the fix, and this is my blog, right? And so it's showing that people are going to the fix page as a whole, so not necessarily an individual blog post, but they're seeing the summary page. And then it's showing me that people are going to the mini session, the page, and then into some of these specific blogs, right? So this information is telling me that a lot of people are coming to my site to check out the resources. Part of that is because that is the biggest promotion that I do, right? So I'm normally sharing a blog post or a mini session or something like that. So that makes sense. But they're also wanting to know more about me, right? So this is showing me that it's not as many people are actually getting to the pages, about digital strategy or social media marketing that describe my services. They're spending a lot of time on my blog posts and on the general pages of my site. And so that's helpful for me too, to both validate to continue creating blog posts because they're generating traffic. People are, visiting those pages. Ideally, they're reading the whole blog or at least reading a portion of it. And then they're going from there to something else. So that is really encouraging and it helps me to validate like, okay, I'm spending the right time in the right spaces. Now, if you look at your analytics and you see that no one's reading your blogs or it's very small percentage of people are actually reading your content, then you might want to consider, is the content you're sharing valuable to your audience? Are you promoting it well and properly? Or is it something that maybe you need to adjust? Maybe you need to share more content more often, or maybe you need to pull back. That'll obviously depend upon your business and how you do things, but this kind of information will helps me to understand where people are spending their time, how they're engaging with my site, and what's of the most interest. So, the first blog post up here is talking about the 3 steps to prepare for your holiday marketing campaigns. People are really interested in that, right? That's the top, blog post out of all of these. this month that people are looking at. And so that, tells me that people are interested in that topic. So this can be a really helpful tool. And in each of these, you can click in and I can look at so much more information. So definitely checking out the behavior, seeing what people are doing is really helpful. All right, the next one that I want to look at is the behavior flow. And this is a super fun graph. So as you see, they pop up. These are showing me, and there's a little drop down menu that you can choose a bunch of different information. So you can look at specific landing pages or where people are coming from. And so what this does is it shows you how people are getting to your website and then what they do when they get there. So on this left-hand side here that shows a landing page, it's showing me that a lot of people are starting on my homepage and they're coming to my homepage from some kind of direct link, right? So they're either clicking on a link that takes them directly to my homepage, or they're searching specifically for westfalldigitalstrategies.com. So they are going directly to my site, directly to the homepage. The one below that shows me that people are going to the digital marketing sessions, right? So people are clicking on those links that I'm sharing, and that's the page that they're going to, and so on. And then I can see that from the homepage, people are typically going to the fix, to the digital marketing sessions, to the about page, to different contact pages, web design, all that kind of stuff, right? So this is going to show me what people are most interested in and where they're going. And this makes a lot of sense, right? Because like I said, I'm seeing that people are going to my site to read or consume the different resources I offer. So it makes sense that they're going from the homepage to my blog page. And then from there, I can see even the next step. So it's really cool to see all of that. And then the red piece shows where they're dropping off, right? So where they're spending their time and then leaving. And so it's interesting to me to see kind of how that adjusts and changes. And most people who go to my blog page will click into a specific blog or do something there and then drop off. Whereas some of these other pages, that's kind of where they end. So this is a really helpful tool to show you kind of your customer journey, essentially, right? So on this right-hand side, it shows me, people are entering my site through direct search. Different people are doing it with organic search. So maybe they're looking for a DC, digital agency, and I happen to pop up. Some people, it looks like, are coming from LinkedIn and then Facebook. So all of that information is telling me, okay, where are people finding me? How are they accessing my site? And then what are they doing when they get here? And so I can look at this and say, all right, most people are going to my homepage or to the digital marketing sessions or my blog. So I want to make sure that if I only have so much time to dedicate, right? I want to make sure that I am spending my time and investing time into those resources to make sure that they're really great. So let's say I can't do a full website overhaul in time. I'm going to start and prioritize my homepage, my blog page, and my digital mini session pages to make sure that they are tip-top shape and are able to convert the way I want them to. And then from there, I can track and see where people are going. So this just helps me to know where I can lead people, how I can get them to ultimately contact me, and just even review, okay, what are the pages that people are dropping off from, right? So it looks like a lot of people, they go to the digital mini session page, and then I'm assuming they sign up or they check something out, and then they leave. So it's thinking, and that for me, that's typically what I want them to do, right? I want them to sign up for this webinar and come and join me and learn something new. Obviously, it'd be great if they went and checked out the rest of the site, but at the end of the day, if they visited that page and signed up, they've done what I had hoped. So I know that kind of, can be a good thing. So it's just a matter of figuring out where I want them to go. So I won't dive too much deeper into that because I could spend a lot of time talking about this, and it's super fun and interesting, but this is a really great way to really see how people are engaging with your site. All right, so next, let's talk about the bounce rate. And this is something that can be kind of confusing, but essentially what it means is how many people are coming to your site, visiting one page, and then leaving. And it's typically within, that less than 30-minute period. So if it's a session, Google's going to look at that and say, okay, on average, how many people are going to this one page and then leaving? And so your bounce rate, typically most sites are in the 30%, like, 35 is a good rate. And so having something lower than that is really great. So my 23.99% bounce rate is awesome. That makes me really happy. If it was much higher than that, I would be more concerned. And this is where the bounce rate is really helpful. What is essentially telling you is people are going to your page expecting something and they're not getting it. And so they're leaving. So think about, the last time you went to a website, you Googled something, maybe you're looking for a new pair of shoes and you click on a site and it looks super sketchy. You do not want to spend any time on that site, right? You're going to click out immediately. Or maybe you search for a specific pair of sneakers and you click on a link that makes it seem like that's the right one, and then you get there and it's not the right pair. You're going to leave, right? So it's kind of that same, or that it's the same thing for your business. So for me, looking at that bounce rate, it's telling me that there's something in the way that I'm communicating what someone can expect and they're not getting it, or they're getting what they want, but they're just not sticking around for a long time, right? So this could also be, maybe they click on something and then they get distracted and leave, right? We're all working from home for the most part still. If someone jumps onto my site and is starting to look around and then their kid starts crying, they're gonna get up and walk away and maybe even exit out. So it's not always that you're missing something there, but it can be really helpful if you have a high bounce rate to consider, are there pieces of your site that just aren't meeting your customer and visitor expectations? And maybe it could be something like it's difficult to navigate, or maybe it's difficult to read, or maybe a link is broken. And so people are getting to the site, clicking on something, and then it's not taking them anywhere. They're getting an error message. So if your bounce rate is high, and I would say above 35%, I would look at your pages and at your site and see if there's a way that you can improve upon it. And so that can be really, really interesting. And you can dive even deeper into this and just kind of see what works, what pages have the higher bounce rates, all that good stuff. Okay, I know we've got a lot to go through, so I'm gonna try to speed it up a bit. Okay, so for the social media analytics, I'm not gonna go into each one, but I wanna tell you a little bit about which pieces to focus on. So a lot of people focus on their follower count, which is great and important, but that's not always going to be the best measure of your success on social, right? Because there's a lot of bots, there's a lot of people that are going to follow you just to follow you that may never become clients or customers. So a couple of the engagement pieces that I like to look at or the metrics I like to look at are your engagement rate, the quality of your followers, and then your website clicks. So your engagement rate, typically you'll find it on any of these platforms. It'll automatically tell you, but it's going to look at essentially how much people are engaging with your content. And that's really, really helpful. So it could be anything from likes, comments, shares, all that fun stuff. It's going to tell you, are people seeing your content, liking it, and wanting to engage with it? The quality of your followers. This takes a little more time, but if you scroll through your followers, even just for a little bit, you can tell, how quality they are. I've gotten a lot of followers recently on Instagram, which is great, but a lot of them are going to be people that I wouldn't necessarily work with for a variety of reasons. They're, people in the same business as I am. They're maybe people that are outside of the United States, which I don't currently work with, or they're in an industry that I'm not working in, right? So that doesn't mean they're not great followers. It just means that when I'm looking at that, I might think, okay, there's something I might want to adjust. Maybe the hashtags I'm using, I need to, jumble them up, do something different. But the quality of your followers is what you want to look at, because you could have 1 million followers and no sales, or you could have 100 followers and have 1 million sales, right? It's about how great those people who follow you are connected to your business and what you are offering. And then the third one, website clicks. It's pretty obvious. We obviously want people to go to your website to contact you to do something, right? So it's not that they're just consuming your social content, they're taking initiative, doing something, they want to learn more. So that can be really, really helpful. And looking at that can tell you what is going, what attracts the most engagement, what helps people want to get connected to you. Okay, this last piece, and then we'll have some questions. So this year, I'm doing this again this weekend, actually. But when you're planning for this upcoming year, there's a few things you're going to want to ask yourself. And they're pretty straightforward, but it's really important to be honest. And that's always the hardest part for me, right? So you're going to ask yourself, what worked this year? What didn't work this year? What do I want to accomplish next year? And then how do I accomplish these goals? And then break it down into quarters and months. So what I found that's really helpful is to just remind myself and kind of put a mindset on of, okay, I'm going to talk about what worked and what didn't work. And none of that has to do with my value as a human being, right? So I'm going to look at what didn't work this year. And normally I'm going to be like, oh, this didn't work. This didn't work out. And I would want to say, well, I'm doing everything wrong. Maybe I should just quit. No, I have to work hard not to do that. And, you know, if you tend to do that as well, that's where you have to remind yourself, okay, I'm going to be objective. What didn't work this year? So for example, I launched a web design course to help small business owners figure out how to design their website so that it, you know, would be really effective for them. And it's a great course. I'm really proud of it, but I haven't had any people sign up, any paid, you know, people pay to sign up basically. And a lot of that though, when I think about it, is I haven't properly marketed it. And that's because I've been super busy with other work, right? So it's not necessarily a failure on my part or an inability on my part or anything there. It's because I didn't manage my time well. I had expectations that I just couldn't meet with the other obligations I had. And so that's going to tell me to say, okay, do I want to focus on that this upcoming year? Or is this something that needs to remain kind of on the back burner until I can get to it? So do that kind of stuff for your work. What is it that's worked well? What is, you know, not working out that great? And then what could that, like, why would that be? Could it be that you just have too much on your plate? Could it be a global pandemic? Like, that's a very valid reason. You don't want to like discount that, but figure out, you know, the answers to these questions and then think about what you want to accomplish this upcoming year. So a lot of simple things, and there's a lot more you can dive into. But the weekend piece that I talked about, and this is what I'm doing this weekend, is you kind of want to do a little retreat for yourself. So whether it's just a day or a couple hours, whatever works for you, pick some times and dates and then block them off. So this weekend, I'm only focused on my business. Normally I would work on my client's business, maybe do some things for myself, but this weekend, I'm just focusing on planning and reflecting. And then I'm going to be on Do Not Disturb like the whole weekend, right? So I'm going to make sure that people aren't able to reach me unless it's an emergency, all that kind of stuff. And that kind of goes with number 4 is communicate with others. So I don't have children or anything like that, but if you do, or if there's people who are going to be relying on you during that time period, make sure you communicate with them kind of some expectations. So, you know, do you need your partner to watch the kids and make sure that they're not going to distract you? Do you need to find somewhere where you can safely go and spend some time? That kind of stuff. And then make it enjoyable. So I love coffee. I mean, I'm drinking it right now. I love Oreo cookies and Chipotle. And so I will probably have all of those this weekend, especially when I'm thinking about the things that didn't work out this year, because it's going to be hard and I'm not going to like it. I'm going to try to make it enjoyable by having a delicious cup of coffee and maybe some cookies while I'm doing that, right? To just kind of take some of that tension away. So figure out what works for you. Maybe it's music, maybe it's sitting outside, all those different things. And then the last thing is just to make it happen. So once you pick your dates, commit to them and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to go to the place that I picked. I'm going to get my cup of coffee and I'm going to do the work and work through this. And it's not that you have to have everything figured out, but it's just saying, here's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to follow through. So that's really just kind of the pieces there. We've got a few minutes, so if we have any questions, now is the time for them. I know that was kind of a quick drive-by, but I wanted to really touch on those pieces. So if you guys have any questions, anything like that, there we go. Yeah, so a high bounce rate, something in the 60s, isn't the end of the world, but it definitely is something to look at and see, okay, what's going on there? What can we do to update? Let's see. If you guys don't have any questions, that is cool as well. And the other thing too, when you're reflecting on all of these things, so, you know, if you're looking at your Google Analytics and you're seeing things that need to change, you don't have to do them all at once. Partly because it won't all immediately just fix everything, right? But taking the time to sit down and plan through, okay, if I need to, for me, one of the things I'm gonna do this weekend is look at my website, see what's working, see what's not, and then I'm gonna plan out how I'm gonna approach it. So do I want to break it up over the course of a few weeks? Do I wanna take a whole weekend and redo it? Do I need to find new pictures? Do I need to write new copy? All of those different pieces. And then I'm gonna break it out so that it's easy and manageable and like bite-sized pieces that I can accomplish. All right, so if you don't have any questions, that is totally cool. Oh, we got one, here we go. Oh, okay, great. Question is advice for starting from scratch. That is a great question. I would say, kind of still reflecting on the past experiences you've had or conversations you have had and planning for the future. So what I like to do is think about 10, 5, 3, and 3 year, or 10, 5, 3, and 1 year plans. So I think, okay, where do I want to be in 10 years? Okay, what do I have to do in the next 5 years to get towards that? And kind of just break it down all the way back until I get to 1 year. And that's how I set up my goals. So I'd say if you're starting from scratch, one of those things will probably be to get a website up and running, to look at your processes, to figure out exactly what you're offering and how you want to create that structure for your business, all of those different pieces. So definitely taking the time to really plan and dream and think, but holding those plans loosely. I mean, I started my business over a year ago now, and it is certainly nowhere that I expected it to be in the best way possible. It is so much more than I expected, but also a very different beast than what I anticipated. And so making those plans, but also knowing that things will change. And as we've all seen this year, between a global pandemic and all the other stuff going on, we all just have to kind of be ready to adapt. So I would definitely say, think about where you want to be within the next, if 10 years is a lot to think about where you want to be in the next 3. And then what do you need to do in the next 3 years to get there, and just break it down and start from there. And you might start with one thing and then be like, well, this is not working. Let's pivot, let's switch. And that'll kind of help you to boost. Awesome questions. Great, cool. All right, well, I will wrap us up here. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to email me. What I'll do is I'll send you a follow-up email with the recording as always. And so you can either reply directly to that email, or you can email me at hannah@westfalldigitalstrategies.com. And so I'm happy to talk to you about any questions you have. Next week, we're going to be talking about the top 3 things to do for 2021. So we're going to be looking at things like how you want to update your website, all those little pieces. It'll be fun. So a little bit more practical, which could also be helpful to think about how you want to break down the next, 6 weeks of the year. And then an update is that we're not going to have a mini session on Thanksgiving. That's on the calendar, but I just wanted to remind everyone, and for obvious reasons, because I will be stuffing my face with delicious food. So I hope you guys will be able to spend time with friends or family or loved ones safely, and doing something that you enjoy. So if you guys have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out. But I'm really thankful that you decided to spend your afternoon with me. Have a great day.